Welcome to another episode of Cooking with Kyle. Today we will be making chicken quesadillas. So first we're going to need chicken fajitas, frozen. We're going to need tortilla shells, some taco blend cheese, some taco seasoning mix, and then I'm going to also use this Southwest Chipotle sauce. And then I'm also going to prepare some nacho cheese to dip it in, to dip the quesadilla, as long as the tortilla chips, because you can't have too much cheese, and then a little cooking spray to spray the pan. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is open my nacho cheese. It has one of these pop tops. So all you have to do is pop it open. And according to the directions on this, you don't have to add anything to it. You just put it in a saucepan on the stove for 10 to 15 minutes. So let's go over here to where I have my saucepan. Yes, I do have a saucepan. And I'm going to turn this burner on. It says medium, so let's put it on medium right there. And this burner back here doesn't get used very often. So we're gonna dump our cheese in. I'm gonna grab a spoon because it's not coming out super well. And I know I'm not gonna use all of this cheese sauce, so I'm gonna refrigerate the rest of it after it cools and use it later on my leftovers. Alright, so that's good enough there, and we're just going to let that sit for a while, and we'll come back and stir it in a few minutes. So now I'm going to prepare my skillet for the chicken. I'm going to put a little cooking spray in it just to help keep it lubricated. And then I'm going to take some chicken. Now I'm only doing one quesadilla, so it's not going to take a whole lot. I'm going to turn my burner on. So some of these are kind of frozen together, so we can break them apart. I think that is usually about the amount I use. Now some people might say, well, that's not very much chicken. That's not enough chicken. Well, I don't. It's not going to be a very big quesadilla. It's a small tortilla shell. So that's good enough for me. All right, and there's my cheese heating up back there. So while we're waiting on the chicken to heat up, I've got my griddle here, and I've got 2 tortilla shells. And this is the top shell, so I'm not going to do anything with it yet. But I am going to go ahead, just while I'm waiting, and I'm going to get my initial layer of cheese on here. I'm going to do a layer of cheese, and then I'm going to add the chicken once the chicken gets pretty well done. And then I'll add just a little bit more cheese. One very important thing to note when doing this and these quesadillas, never use shredded Velveeta. It's not good. I don't know if it's good ever, but it's certainly not good for quesadillas. So my chicken is starting here to sizzle, so it's starting to get thawed out. And you know, some people say, well, you should probably thaw this chicken out before you put it on, but I don't have time for that. So I'm just going to kind of turn it over here so the other side can get a little thawed. And then I'm also going to take my taco seasoning mix, and it doesn't take very much of this, so I'm a little bit like Dave with the salt. I'm afraid to get too much, so I usually get some in my hand like that, and then I kind of sprinkle it on here. Now you can do it with only the taco seasoning, and you can also do it with just the chipotle sauce. I've done it both ways. I've never done it with both. I've now applied seasoning to both sides of the chicken. And my cheese is starting to bubble here, so I'm gonna stir it. This is kind of hard. I had it zoomed in too far. Now, one thing you'll notice that I don't have a spoon holder. And it is about to be a big milestone birthday for me, so if anybody wants to buy me anything, a spoon holder would be a good thing. So the chicken's starting to get a pretty good sear on it. One thing that I like to do is I don't like my chicken on my quesadillas to be big chunks. So I usually kind of cut it up so that it's in smaller pieces on there. And then that also lets us to brown a little bit more of the chicken, the edges and such. All right, so our chicken is done, or is brown enough. So I'm gonna put the chicken on the quesadilla, and I'm gonna kind of spread it out because I want it to be evenly distributed as much as possible on my quesadilla. Then I'm gonna take my Chipotle ranch, or it's not even called ranch, it's just Southwest Chipotle, which is made by the Hidden Valley people, which are, known for their ranch usually. And I don't want to do a whole lot, plus this comes out, pretty generously. So, I don't know, I'm going to try that. Then I'm going to use, like I said, more cheese. Also, so while I'm doing this, we can go ahead and turn this on. This is going to be about there maybe. This meal actually has me using 3 different burners on my stove at one time for one meal. It's crazy. That never happens. Usually I'm a 1 or 2 burner at a time type of guy. All right, so there's that. Now this is still cool enough that I can move some of this cheese up to the top. Now normally, but I was a little distracted by the recording, I would have started this burner earlier so that this would have been warmed up and started to melt before I added the chicken. So then we're going to add our top shell, and we're going to let it rest as it warms up. All right, so it's been a few minutes. We can see that we do have a little bit of meltage under there. But if we look under it, we're not really getting much brownage of our tortilla. But these little fajita tortillas, they don't brown very much, I've noticed. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. I do have a little bit of brownage going on there. And you can also see that as the tortilla cooks up a little bit, it loses a little bit of size. Like now you can see that that tortilla that's on bottom that wasn't against the skillet is now a little bit bigger because this top one shrunk a little bit. Let's check on our cheese real quick. I turned it down quite a bit. We got some nice bubblage going on there. I'm gonna have to stir it here, but I can't stir it with my phone in my hand, so I'll stir it after we pause. All right, so our quesadilla is done. The second side doesn't take nearly as long as the first side, so we're gonna move it onto our real cutting board, and take just a regular pizza cutter. Now, normally I just do this on my plate, but I decided that this meal deserves the fancy plate today, and I didn't not want to cut on this nice plate that probably hasn't ever been used before. So if I had a larger tortilla, like a soft taco size or a burrito size, I'd probably want to cut this into 8 pieces. But I'm gonna, with this size of a tortilla, 4 pieces is pretty good. So now for the most important part, as Dave says, the plating. So we have our plate. Now we have to decide, do we want our lines to go vertically or horizontally? I think I'm going to go horizontally. That feels better to me. And I'm going to take my quesadilla quarters, and we'll do that. And then grab my cheese sauce and spoon. Give it one last stir. Oh, I've slopped some out, so I guess my cheese is going to go right here. Now, you could use cheese to dip the quesadilla in. You could dip the quesadilla in just the chipotle sauce that we put on it. You could also dip the quesadilla in just a regular salsa or a regular taco sauce. It kind of just depends on your preference. So there we have chicken quesadilla and nachos. And this has been another episode of Cooking with Kyle.